Good Wednesday morning, Quad Cities. It is 9 o'clock here on the dot, and it is the first day of October. Welcome into Ask Andrew Live. I'm meteorologist Andrew Stutzke.
And I'm weather anchor Peter Warner. October, man, already.
I know. It's hard to get in the October mood because of how hot it has been around here lately.
Really doesn't feel like it.
No.
And it's been very boring for us too, hasn't it?
It has been. I have been looking and searching under the sun for everything and anything to talk about weather-wise this week, and I've really had to dig into some data. It's one of those data digging weeks.
Data digging patterns, and we found a lot of what I like to call ESPN stats.
Yes.
So you know how ESPN on their shows, they'll find a very specific stat, like first person to break 274 yards passing with 2+ touchdowns on March 5th since 2005, like those weird stats or something.
Yeah, we really got to dig in for some stuff to find to talk about. Thankfully, it looks like perhaps next week we could get something a little more interesting to talk about in terms of some weather coming in. So we have a lot to talk about today, despite the fact that it's been so boring weather-wise around here. I want to thank you for joining us, as you usually do, hopefully every Wednesday. If you are new, welcome. This is something we do every Wednesday at 9 o'clock. It is the only 30-minute streaming show dedicated to weather here in the Quad Cities.
It is.
And it's a good time, especially when I have company and I'm not by myself.
It's a lot more fun that way,
It's a lot more fun, yeah. So big shout out to Peter for joining me this week. We kind of have a rotating cast. Sometimes we get Peter, sometimes we get Morgan, and sometimes James makes an
James, I think
appearance.
twice at least, has made an appearance.
We
So.
got to get him back on here. It is a good time. So if you're new, welcome. How do you submit your question that we're going to get to here coming up in just a little bit? The easiest way is to text it to us with your phone, and that number is 309-304-0888, 309-304-0888.
309-304-0888. Notice a trend there at the end?
Yeah, we picked that number for a reason.
Yeah, just a little bit.
Mostly because it's easy for me to remember. No, I'm kidding. It's good marketing. So yeah, get us that. We're also streaming, I believe, on our Facebook page as well, so you can submit your question there. But best to put it in the text chat. That guarantees that we're going to be able to see it, because sometimes Facebook is a little funky with questions, as we've seen with Craig Hignite, and as you're going to see coming up on GMQC at 11 when you do Plants and Gardens. The Facebook comments never match up on two phones.
Nope.
They're different. And sometimes Facebook hides them for whatever reason. So best to text it.
Yes.
That way it guarantees that's what we get. So we're going to chat about some weather. We're going to go over the two questions that I answered this week for Ask Andrew, and then the rest of the time is yours. You get to ask us your weather-related questions.
Ooh.
Yeah. You know what we say?
That
Don't
sounds
make it
fun.
weird, though.
No.
Don't make it weird.
No, my mom watches this. We don't want anything weird there.
My grandma watches this, so yeah, we definitely don't want anything weird. That's for sure. Let's talk about weather, what's going on today. There actually is something going on today. We're actually going to avoid the 90s for once.
Wow.
Yeah.
Feels crazy.
And you've been pulling up some statistics on this, not to put you on the spot.
Okay.
But you've also been doing some data digging in terms of how many 80s we've had, how many 90s we've had.
Yes. So in terms of 80s, because I was like, this is way too late of a rush for 80s. It feels like almost August, right? We have never had 10+ days straight of 80-degree temperatures that started in September. Again, ESPN stat handpicked, but that started in September and ended in October. The longest stretch ever was 7 days in 2021, and there was, I think, 3, maybe was 6 when we were talking about it.
Yeah.
None of them have touched the double digits, and we're on pace for, 12? Because this started last Thursday.
Yes.
So we're already day 7 today. Then we have 8 tomorrow.
Yeah.
9 Friday, 10, 11, and then maybe 12. 10, I think it's 12.
Yeah.
Math, but no, yeah,
numbers.
12+ days would shatter the record before.
Yeah, this is so impressive.
It is.
It really, really is. And I think it caught, some folks off guard. I was one of those people. I thought, maybe not done with 90. I thought maybe we'd have maybe 1 or 2 days that would be really warm, but the fact that we've had that many. 12, by the end of this forecast period.
Weird.
It's a big deal.
It is, yeah.
Yeah. So the reason we're going to break that today, we're not going to get in the 90s like we have the last couple of days, is the fact that we finally have some clouds around. And what's happening is, I'm going to show the regional radar and satellite here. And I don't think I have anything on it. If I do, you can ignore the fronts and low pressures. Those are not accurate in terms of their positions.
No.
But you can see, even on the radar this morning, we had some quote-unquote shower activity trying to get into western Iowa. None of that was reaching the ground, by the way. but it's a sign that this pattern is finally starting to break down a little bit. And it's going to be temporary. This is today only that we get these cooler temperatures. And you can see the clouds are streaming up from the south and the west. There's quite a big break right now in eastern Iowa that'll swing our way. But there's more cloudiness to come in northwest Missouri that's got to move up in our direction. And we very may well, for a time this afternoon, go completely cloudy for about an hour or two.
Yeah, I was going to say earlier this week we were looking at mostly cloudy to cloudy. Obviously, the pattern changed a little bit, but it's a little bit of an increase in moisture today, too, right? We're going to be seeing just maybe a little bit more humidity.
Yep, a little bit more humidity. We're seeing the dew points, I think, back into the 60s again today.
Yeah, that would make sense.
So we may feel just a touch of that, but we are not expecting any rain to come out of these clouds. So we're going to get a little relief in terms of the heat. Still no relief from the dry conditions, though.
No.
We've now got Aledo for a burn ban, and I believe as of yesterday we added Walnut.
Did we add Walnut?
List. Yes.
Really? I didn't know that.
Asking folks not to burn. And that is especially true during the day. Now, if you must burn, if you do it in the morning or later in the evening when the relative humidity is higher, we usually form a little dew
It's better, yep.
on the ground. It's a little safer to do. I would not do it in the middle of the day. That's the worst time you can do that.
That's when we're driest and hottest, obviously. But
Exactly. A lot of dry fields out there,
oh,
too.
I know. I was going to say harvesting. It's been great for the farmers, though.
Yes.
Oh, my gosh. I know they've been loving this.
Their productivity is through the roof right now. They're able to get in there and get that crop. Plus, they're going to save on LP costs. They don't have to dry out the crop as much,
true.
which is good.
It is good.
Definitely need all the help they can get, that's for sure. So we're going to enjoy the break today with this increase in cloud cover. And then as we get into tonight, we're still going to keep some of these clouds around. That's not going to, get us any warmer for overnight lows. We're still going to be in the 50s here. But I want to show you what the difference makes tomorrow. So today the winds are out of the east. Tonight they turn southeast. Tomorrow they turn south and southwest, and the clouds go away. And look what happens to your temperatures.
And they're going to soar right back up.
Yeah.
That high is going to shift further to our east as well, right? Because we have a second pretty much almost cut off high moving into.
Exactly,
Yep.
yes. So that is going to mean a hotter day tomorrow. We're going to be closer to 90, and we will get into the 90s on Friday. We're likely going to do it all over again on Saturday. You're all right. They saw this morning.
You got to
They're
make sure
good.
they see it, though.
And we're probably going to see a stray 90 or 2 on Sunday as well. Also wanted to show this, too, that I showed off this morning. The Climate Prediction Center yesterday releasing their last October outlook for the month here. No surprise, it's the last day of September. So this is the latest outlook and now calls for 70% probability across the entire Quad Cities region for warmer than normal temperatures for the month of October. Now that doesn't mean that we're going to see multiple days in the 90s, excluding what's coming up this week, but it does mean that we're likely going to see a lot of 80s. A lot of 70s because the average temperature really plummets by the end of the month. This is a strong signal. I mean, you're talking 70% probability of this.
I was going to say, and this is kind of a trend we've gotten used to, right? Over the last few years, I remember last year, October was warmer than normal.
Yep.
It's kind of just become a pattern. Say what you will on that. But yeah, we're seeing this kind of trend start to happen more. And also with this hot start, you can take into account, too, the average monthly temperature is going to get completely skewed.
Yes.
So that's something to take into account as well. We could even return to normal because this is just the average monthly temperature overall, correct?
Right, yep.
So because of the hot start we're seeing here, we could cool off a little bit more at the end of the month still.
That's exactly right. So I usually will, right about the middle of the month, I'll do that mid-month check-in during the morning show showing, okay, this has been our average temperature so far, this is our rainfall so far. You're probably going to see that number be elevated at that beginning of that check-in. But by the time we get to the end of the month, I think you're right. I think we're going to kind of balance things out a little bit more, depending on how much cold we can get in here later in the month.
It's true. It's all going to be about that polar jet. How is that looking? Have we looked at that yet?
At the what?
At that polar jet or the vortexes too up there. Have they started to?
They're starting to come together.
A little bit?
The snow in Siberia is growing.
It is.
As we speak.
Really?
So, yes, we're starting to get a couple more pieces of that puzzle to put together.
There we go.
Yeah. So something we're probably going to focus on likely in the next week or two. And we'll do a deeper dive into that too, because that's going to have a big influence on what happens.
Yeah.
We're also talking about the warm water right off the west coast of the United States. That has a factor as well. So lots and lots of pieces coming in.
It's going to be a fun one.
It will be. Yeah, we'll see how that all shakes out. So there's our warmer than normal probability for October. Again, it's going to be a warm month. Some of the highlights of that, and we've already talked about this, I talked about this during the fall outlook, is that you're going to delay the fall color. That's the second bullet point here. And then the only wild card is the tropical season, the tropical component of this. I need to get this graphic together, and I'm going to try to do that today while Peter's doing the 11. But NOAA puts out kind of a graphical cast of what's going to happen down in the Caribbean and in areas where we expect tropical storm formation. They actually have it circled in that region and in the Gulf that they are expecting a pretty high probability of something developing there in the next 2 weeks.
In the Gulf?
Yes. So we're talking about that Central American gyre
Oh,
and how you can get those mini low pressures. If we can get a storm system in the Gulf, that would lift north in our direction, especially if we don't have any kind of a jet stream nearby. That's the one component that could put a squash on a forecast like this.
That's true.
Because you'd be talking about multiple days of clouds, multiple days of rain, if it can track into the Midwest. And that's a big if.
That's a big if.
It's another component we have to watch.
We do. And it's already pretty busy out there right now.
Yeah, we were talking about Umberto, Imelda.
Imelda?
This is something I don't think I've ever seen, at least since I've been a meteorologist, that you're tracking two storm systems
Kind of,
so close to each other.
yeah, they've been kind of bouncing off each other almost.
They really have, yeah. And this is where Imelda is now. You can see where Umberto is. It's just right over Peter's shoulder there. Umberto's kind of a mess. It's a Category 1 as well right now, I believe. It's going to get either gobbled up by Imelda or Umberto is going to gobble up Imelda. We'll see. One of the two is going to happen. They will likely merge at some point well out to sea. It's pretty much becoming a fish storm unless you're in Bermuda at this point.
Yeah.
But it's impressive that the storms were so close to each other.
It was. People were wondering if we're going to have a Fujiwara come into play.
Yes.
What is that?
So the Fujiwara effect is what happens when two systems are so close to each other. What they likely do is they dance around each other. So in this case, it's the stronger of the two storms. Earlier, it was Umberto. So what would happen is if that was still the strongest of the two storms, Imelda would kind of rotate up toward Umberto and may even go completely around it. And then eventually it gets sucked in.
Yes.
Taken right into the storm.
Merge almost in a way. It just allows it to deepen quicker pretty much.
Yeah. But it's not like, we're not talking like the day after tomorrow scenario where it's going to create this huge superstorm and it's going to supercharge itself. No, it actually kind of does the opposite of that. It can actually kind of enhance the shear and it can enhance a couple of other things. You may get a brief burst of some strengthening, but you're not going to create a huge superstorm by any means.
No.
But it's still interesting to watch.
It's fascinating to watch.
Yeah. So that's the other thing we've been tracking this week. What else have we been talking about? Let's go to what I posted on social media late yesterday. We did take the top spot for the hottest end to the month of September in the Quad Cities. And look how close this was. 0.3 of a degree is what we managed to do to beat the record in 2017.
What's interesting is, I think you were talking about this yesterday. If you look at the little bar at the very bottom there, hasn't it been like, what, 5 of the top 10 or something in the last 10 years?
Easily, yeah. I think I still have that in my layout here that's got the ranking. Now, the ranking has changed since we made this, but still you can see the ranking right by Peter there. So our ranking right now, and of course the 85, that is no longer because we've now had the full 30 days, so that number came down. This was only going through the 29th, I believe. But yeah, you can see the ranking there on the right-hand side of your screen.
Yeah, there's 15, 16, 21, 25, 24, 2017 through the first, what, 7? Yep.
Yep, you have basically 8 years that have all been since 2000. When's the earliest? 2007? So yeah,
Yes.
8 years.
Yeah.
All 8 years since 2007 have seen this warmer push to the end of September. And what you're looking at, so the red bars, as Peter said, those are your actual average high temperatures for each year through that time period. The blue line is the long-term average. So you're not going to see much movement with that.
No.
But if you look at this in an increment of a 30-year average, that's a huge jump.
That is.
At the end that you're
Trending
seeing.
a lot warmer. Very interesting.
I'm really curious to see, I know James has looked into this a little bit already, of a warm October start. Are we seeing this same trend at the beginning of October?
I think he made a graphic for it yesterday, and he said to pull it up today because he thought it was fascinating too. I don't know if we can find that one.
I'll have to see if I can get it to pull up here, because sometimes...
Something about James's graphics, they're hard to find sometimes.
Yes, and I don't know why that is the case. We're all sharing the same system. I might have to log into his workspace to find it. For some reason, it's still not showing up in the recently updated graphics anyway. Actually, no, there it is.
There it is. We got it.
Hold on. We're going to load it up. So this was interesting, yeah, and James posted this yesterday to a social page. We'll give this a second to load. It's the first time it's coming into my workspace, so it's going to take a second for
And
all
I think
this
it's
to
a
get in there.
it's a biggie one.
Yeah, there's a lot there.
Yeah.
So kind of absorbing this. So he's looking at the hot start to October, the first 5 days of October. So that would be now through Sunday
Yes.
of this week. So you're looking at today, forecast high mid-80s. Tomorrow, yeah, we're close to 90. The average high, 89. So then at the bottom, that's where you're seeing some of the hottest starts to October, it looks like.
And you got to go way back for some of those. 1897.
Yeah, that's a long ways. I mean, that's when we first started keeping records.
Yeah, that was, I think, the first year ever.
So that's impressive. It's interesting, 2023 is on there. We have another close year, just like we did with the September one, 2024. So that average right here, if you're doing the math at home, between this top row is 89. So what you're seeing at the bottom of your screen here, that 89.4, we're kind of sandwiched in between here.
Yeah.
So second
We'd be
place.
close.
Yeah.
If we go a little bit higher today, since we're getting a little more sunshine than we thought too, that could notch it up just enough to maybe take it over.
So we'll have to see how that's going to work. Again, there's some rounding that's going to go into this.
That's true.
That could push things in either direction, but it sure looks like we're headed for second place.
At least.
For the hotter starts
Yeah.
to October.
Yeah.
That's some impressive stuff.
Wild.
Very, very impressive. I'll throw up the 8-day really quick, and then we'll get to the 2 questions that we had, and then we're going to get to your questions. So we're going to get the 90s back, as you see in James' graphic here. What about rain? When can we finally start talking about that? It will not be until next Monday and Tuesday. There will be some showers, perhaps an isolated thunderstorm in there, and some sharply cooler temperatures, too, by the looks of it.
Yeah, and it's going to be a strong cold front, right? That's bringing those.
Yep.
And timing, is it still trending towards the morning? I know it obviously can fluctuate this far out, but trending morning still?
Yep, still trending morning. Both days actually trending kind of in the morning time. And then getting a little dry again by next Wednesday. But it looks like another push of air behind that too that could bring a more widespread soaking rain compared to what I'm seeing for Monday and Tuesday.
That's Thursday, kind of Friday.
Yeah, later in the week. Yeah. That would be nice to see, because the signal for the Monday, Tuesday stuff has not been very much rain at all. But when we bring in the late week stuff, that looks a little bit better for some coverage of some soaking rain, which is exactly what we need.
Need it, yeah. And most of the harvest should be done then too.
Exactly.
So that's perfect.
It'll be all brought in.
Yes.
Let's go over the 2 questions I had today really quick, and then we'll get to your questions. So the one I had earlier this week, it's been a funky hurricane season. It's been a little bit delayed. We haven't seen any landfalls in the U.S. yet. I hope we can keep it that way. Past history tells us we have a low probability of that. But we've already had something happen that's been really rare this hurricane season, and that is, for the first time since the early 1930s, our first 3 hurricanes have been major hurricanes. Check this out. So our first hurricane was Gabrielle.
Yep.
That was a Category 4. Then we had Category 4 Hurricane Aaron. Then we had Category 5 Hurricane Umberto. And then Imelda kind of bringing up the rear here. But it's the first 3. This scenario right here, the first 3 has not happened since 1935.
Really?
That was an interesting statistic. And actually, all 3 of those, and the word is escaping my brain right now, the rapid intensification, all 3 of those were rapidly intensifying storms within a 24-hour period. There's a term for it, and I don't know why my morning brain can't latch onto the term right now.
Mine still is too.
But I will probably remember it by the time we get out of the show today. But yeah, those 3 rapidly intensifying. Many of these, I think it was Umberto, that went from like a Category 1 the first day it reached that, and then by the next morning it was already a Category 4 storm 24 hours later.
It was quick.
Like a 90-mile-per-hour jump.
Yeah.
In 24 hours. So very, very active out there.
Yeah, very glad it didn't make its way through. Now, I have a question.
Yes.
Did you see how the end of that 1935 season, played out?
How it played out? I did not.
Okay.
Did you look?
I didn't know.
No.
I need that. That's something I was going to look it up, but then I'm scared that
Yeah.
we'll lose all of our questions right now because
Oh my gosh.
so weird.
That's a great question, though, to see, how did 1935 end up?
So I know we were talking about snow for the year. We don't have any predictions yet. Don't know about that yet. But we were talking about looking at these similar patterns in terms of rainfall and temperatures to see what happened after that. So.
Yes. And sometimes, it's also good to go back and listen and see what happened as well. Was it a blockbuster hurricane season toward the end, like we're kind of seeing right now? Or was it more uniform? So, yeah, that's something I think we should go back and look at. I think that'd be pretty interesting to see. Reminder, it's not over yet, hurricane season, that is. There's your placement of where we're at right now. You can see we still got a ways to go. In fact, the number of named storms, you actually get a little uptick heading into the end of October, the beginning of November.
I was going to say, and also it looks like you get here right near the start of October again. It's not anything we're looking at in terms of development right in the next 5-7 days.
Nothing right now.
Okay,
Yeah.
but it looks like there's even an uptick of the Cat 3+, which is interesting.
That's right. It's definitely been up there. So we'll continue to kind of watch that, see how that plays out. Again, it's the Gulf that we really have to watch in terms of any storm that's going to have a direct impact on our weather other than heat. The Atlantic stuff is what's going to bring you the heat. The other question we had this morning, before we get to your questions, was this, and it was from James in New Boston. He was wondering, does a hot September mean we'll have a colder winter? So here's what I did. I went to the supercomputers at NOAA. They have this really neat website where you can do what we call analog years. And what you can do is you can put in certain years, like, for example, years that have been just like this one, where we've had this late summer heat. And you can go forward and say, well, I want to see what happened the following, so for our example, December and February. So based on years that we've had summers like the one that we're in right now, not including La Nina, by the way, this is what has happened the following winters. So what was interesting is we're kind of even split here.
I was going to say, we're right in the middle.
Yeah. White means it was a normal winter. And then, of course, the blues, it was colder than normal. The warms, it was wetter than normal. But what also is, if you paint the jet stream on here, which you can do with these temperature maps.
That's true.
This is a very typical La Nina jet stream in that it's right over top of us. That means you're going to be vulnerable to these cold punches of air at times, but you're also going to be near the storm track, so you could get plentiful snow with this.
I was going to say, plenty of snow, because all that moisture is going to creep its way up.
Yeah. So
Yay.
This was interesting to look at. Again, if you want to use past years as an example, not including La Nina. La Nina could certainly make this cold stronger and move it right in our direction. I think that's kind of where we're trending anyway, even though this map doesn't show that. I still think we're trending colder this winter.
Just a tad.
And certainly probably snowier too. The question is how much snow?
Compared to last year? Yeah, I think it's hard to beat
Yeah.
last year.
It is. It really is. So thank everybody for submitting your questions there. Some good ones this week, and we'll likely have some more good ones to take on next week.
Well, we got a whole lot in here today.
Ooh, we got a big audience today.
Oh, yeah.
All
Wesley is waiting for the snow. I don't think that's coming for about at least a month and a half, 2 months probably.
I'm
at this
saying
rate.
December. I'm like, I don't think you're going to see snow
waiting
till
till December this year
You're
again?
probably not even going to see it till after Christmas. That's my bet.
Wow.
I'm not going to bet.
That's a big call.
I know. I'll bet like $2 on it.
Okay. I'll play the house. Oh, my goodness.
We'll see what happens with that.
Riley was wondering, did you tell me about a stumper of a question she gave you on September 17th?
Yes. So she asked something about you're in a valley.
Okay.
And if you had a downburst that moved through an inversion, what would happen?
In the valley?
Yes, in a valley, if you had a downburst that went through an inversion, a temperature inversion. And I was thinking, well, that's a really complicated setup.
That's true.
Especially if you're involving a temperature inversion.
But also, what would the temperatures be like in the valley? Because I know in Phoenix we get them all the time, right? Where you get these inversions and they ride their way along the top of the mountains. But the second they get into the valley in Phoenix, because the whole metroplex there is pretty much one giant valley around mountains, dissipates very quickly on the downslope. So that maybe could be the best scenario I can think of off the top of my head. Is it probably wouldn't play out that well. Because, I mean, you can see it also on the snowpack on one side of the mountain, say in California.
Yeah.
Then once it gets to the other side, going down into the valley, falls there. but it's the only thing I could think of.
She stumped me. 2 weeks ago, I got that question.
That was a good one.
And I'm still trying to find the answer.
It's a good one.
That is a good question, though.
Very good.
Thanks, Riley.
Rick said, since we are already at this unusual amount of days over the average temp, what's the record to beat?
So the number of days we're talking about,
Yeah.
what, a dozen?
Yeah.
We'd have to look that up and see.
I don't know.
What the if you're thinking September and October total, we can probably look that up really quickly here.
Yeah.
If you want to throw out, you can throw out another question. I'll punch in the computer here real quick.
We got the joke of the day. Perfect.
Oh, hey, let's
Perfect.
do it. Let's do it.
What do you call a rainbow on a treadmill?
A rainbow on a treadmill. Good question. What do you call a rainbow on a treadmill?
A running color commentary.
That is clever.
It's good. Very good.
Oh my gosh.
Billy.
Good job on that one.
That was a great one. Billy from Clinton. Hello, Billy. I remember when the EF tornado scale was introduced, but when was the last time the Saffir-Simpson hurricane scale was updated?
To my knowledge, that scale
Has that stayed?
has not changed
I was going to say, I don't think it's changed.
since its introduction. Yeah.
Yeah. It's a
It has
good
not
one.
Changed, yeah.
I think it works very well.
There are some folks that want to do, in the private sector, there's been talk about doing an impact scale, because if you look at a Category 2 storm, for example, look at what happened with Helene.
That's true.
It wasn't a Category 4 or a Category 5 when the remnants made its way up to the Carolinas, and look at how much death and destruction it caused.
That's true.
So there's some folks in the private sector that want to go with an impact scale rather than the Saffir-Simpson
makes
scale,
sense.
which kind of makes sense. I don't know if that's ever going to change anytime soon. At least as of right now, I have heard no talk of changing that.
Sure, and I feel like the way it's worded in NWS warnings and say from on-air meteorologists and the private sector, I feel like that's almost kind of your responsibility there too. So I don't know if we need to change.
Exactly, because if you look at a statement, a hurricane watch, a hurricane warning, they've separated out the impacts now. They will tell you what the impacts are, whether it's life-threatening storm surge, the wind. Most of the time it's flooding. The storm surge is the #1 killer of these storms.
Yes.
But yeah, that's a good question. No, nothing coming down the pike that we know of right now.
Marcus. Hi, Marcus.
Is that my Marcus?
That's your Marcus.
Oh my gosh, good morning.
You projected the prime color changing for leaves as November 1st, but I'm seeing a lot of leaves changing color and falling off trees already. Why are we seeing this? Also, happy spooky season. It is spooky season.
That's right. It's his favorite month.
It's his favorite month.
It's Halloween season. It's finally here. So you're going to start to see some of those leaves turn a little bit early, all depending on, of course, the variety of tree you're looking at. And also, where is the tree located? Does it have other trees surrounding it? Does it also in an area that's kind of more drought-stricken than other areas are? For example, northeast of the Quad Cities now in moderate drought. So they're likely going to have a lot more tree stress in that region that could cause those trees to lose their leaves earlier. But I think especially Iowa side, that's sitting pretty good in terms of the drought situation in eastern Iowa. There's not much drought there.
No.
So kind of a variety of factors. And I'm also hoping we don't get a ton of wind between now and the end of the month, because that would rip more of them away. Yeah.
It looks like there's a chance for some strong winds, Saturday or Sunday moving through too?
A little gusty.
Yeah. Oh,
Don't want that.
we don't want that.
No.
Rick was wondering, when do you see the chance for a first frost?
First frost. So our first frost is about 2 to 3 weeks away on average. It's about the middle of October. But based on what we're seeing, with this temperature forecast and the pattern, it's probably going to be a late frost this year.
That's what I was going to guess.
Yeah.
Should make sense.
I wouldn't count on it being around the normal. I would count on it being a week, maybe 2 weeks late at this point.
Chris was wondering if the term we were trying to think of is a bomb cyclone.
Thank you. Yes, bombogenesis.
I saw that. I was like,
Yes. It's very similar to that, yes.
yes.
Rapidly strengthening.
Yes. Bomb cyclones typically aren't related to hurricanes.
No, because it's a different type of low pressure system.
Yes. That's the ones we get over the Pacific, say near Seattle.
Exactly.
Rick was wondering if this low water table is our lead into our winter freeze. We can likely expect more waterline freezes. The Mississippi water levels are right down there with it, was similar to 2006 too. And then Rick was wondering if there's any rainfall we can look forward to, like a big dump of rainfall before then.
a little while. We think that early week stuff is light, but late week stuff should be a little bit plentiful. The only advantage to having a low Mississippi River heading into the winter months is you're going to have a lower risk of flooding in the spring. You're able to handle a little bit more water in the following spring.
Which is good.
Yeah.
Rick was wondering, why is the temperature in Clinton, Iowa, and Sterling usually so different when they're about the same distance away from each other?
Sure. So a lot of it has to deal with where those stations are located. And the one in the Quad Cities is a prime example. It is right in the middle of the urban heat island. That station is at the International Airport just down the street here. Think of what surrounds the airport. South Park Mall, concrete, the runway itself, the parking lot of the airport. There is a lot of concrete down there. Not to mention, look where we are here. North of the airport, you've got John Deere Road, you've got all these shopping complexes, concrete all over the place. So it's usually the environment. The one in Sterling Rock Falls is also located at the airport, fairly close to the runway.
It is.
Not too far of a distance away from there. Whereas some of these other weather stations are in a more open area. Elevation also plays a little bit of a role in that too.
And also just simple things such as cloud cover.
Cloud cover, yep.
The wind speed you're getting on one place versus another too.
Exactly. You can put a whole list of variables on that.
There's so many. It's crazy. It's crazy. Riley, you want another stumper?
Another one. I don't
Text
know
that
if my
one in,
heart.
and then maybe we can try and answer it by Wednesday next week.
Yeah, there we go.
That way we have some time. We don't have to look like we don't know it on air.
I like that idea. You were asking about the longest streak earlier. For September, it was 2021. For October, it was 1963.
Wow.
That longest streak of
Above normal temperatures. Yeah. Rick was wondering, all-time days above normal record all 12 months.
all 12 months. Oh,
That's some research that we have to go into.
I got to get to a different app to find that.
Yes, that's something we can look up. And
But we can look that
We can
up.
bring that up next week. I'll just screenshot it on my phone here. So
We need
have
a
it
bigger
ready.
computer,
We do. We need a supercomputer.
and we have access to one, just not in this room.
No. That's all I got.
Cool. We're all caught up. So that is, again, is all of your questions that we have for today. If we missed one or you think of one later, you can always submit it on the website. Just go to WQ80.com. You hit the weather tab. There's a little Ask Andrew section. You submit it there. It goes into my nice, organized spreadsheet on my computer.
Oh, it's beautiful.
And then I'll get to it as early as possibly next week. But you guys had another round of some great questions. I'll probably pick one or two of those next week to do a little bit of a deeper dive on air.
Ooh.
Give us something more to talk about. But other than that, that's all we got for you on this episode. So we will look forward to seeing you again next Wednesday.
Next Wednesday.
Get out that wide brim hat, get your sunscreen, get your favorite beverage, preferably non-alcoholic, just to keep yourself hydrated. But we're humans. We got to throw an alcoholic one in there once in a while.
Every once
right?
in a while.
Exactly.
In moderation.
Exactly. I don't blame you. Do what you got to do to stay comfortable. We're going to see you next Wednesday. Peter will see you coming up later this morning on GMQC at 11, and then I will see you guys bright and early tomorrow morning on GMQC starting at 4:30. Have a great Wednesday, Quad Cities.